La versión de Drácula de Francis Ford Coppola es un clásico absoluto, pero como todo clásico tuvo un montón de problemas que incluyeron, por ejemplo, el cambio de su editor, porque Francis necesitó tres personas distintas para poder hacer el montaje final. Entre ellas, Angus Sod, que me contó qué cambios hizo en esta película y cuál fue su aporte, además de una anécdota increíble que incluye a Gary Oldman y a Jack Nicholson. Mirá.
We now return to Mira Akien and Contre with our latest interview.
I feel incredibly blessed because to have worked with such a man, and even the way we worked together from the very beginning, it gave me a lot of room. And when we were on Dracula, by Dracula, he was happier. He didn't have money problem. I was more confident in myself, and so I asked him. I said, Francis, why did you give me so much freedom? I mean, I didn't know anything. I didn't know a lot when I started with you. And he said, I knew with you I would get the best result. I mean, that to me that's what a great, intelligent person is. Because I was absolutely right. He just understood me from the very beginning, and he knew how to use me.
Yeah. Dracula.
There's a sinister, darker side to him.
When Francis called me, they already had a preview, which was not, shall we say, very successful. So, I mean, I was following that from a distance. So I immediately thought that Dracula was a great subject for Francis. I thought he's going to kill it. I mean, operatic, theatrical. I thought, great. But it's not really my world. I'm not really interested in this kind of material. So anyway, he called me and told me he wanted me to work on the women because he thought they were not sexy enough. So, a little bit of macho, I'm a woman, I'm French. Okay. But I said, well, Frances, why me? Because I really don't know anything about vampires, and I'm French. So anyway, that's how we started. And we had worked together before. That's why I could talk to him like that. So he said, no, let me send you the book. Have you ever read the book? No. And I'll send you my script annotated. So I read the book, I looked at his note, and I did a lot of research because I didn't know who Bram Stoker was and, that entire period of Irish history, literature. And so I discovered that his mom was a feminist and that she was best friend with Oscar Wilde. And so suddenly for me, I was able to look at Dracula and find a way for me to get in, to be able to cut it. So it was not anymore, a monster story. For me, it was like a women's sexuality in the Victorian age, which Jonathan being the boring middle-class guy, and Dracula being, all the fantasies. So I thought, oh, I'm getting this. I think I know what to do.
I have never met any man with such a passion for life. He is unlike any man.
I was trying to tell a story. My focus was on telling a story that worked, that engaged people from the beginning to the end. And it was not an easy task because the beginning, we had Jonathan, who was, his performance, as we know, well, not bad mouthing, loved the guy, fantastic guy, sweet as could be, talented, but he was struggling with the role of Jonathan, right? So at the beginning, we had a lot of, to get the audience into this movie so that they would not turn the page and not continue watching. It was a challenge, and it took a long time to get it going the right way. And in a way, you have to think of the style of storytelling, which I was not directly thinking, which was what we call an it's a later kind of structure. I can't say the word in English. Anyway, it's people writing to each other. The story is told through writing letters to each other. Right? It's a form of voiceover. And so I was not really focused enough on that at the beginning because I was recutting this, recutting that, because Francis had so many great ideas, genius ideas for this film, and a lot of his ideas were not fully realized. You know what I mean? Yeah. So anyway, but we were like going to mix. We were moving from San Francisco to Rutherford, where the mixing stage is. And the producer was like crying. We don't have a beginning. I've never worked on a movie. We don't have a beginning. Even on the Godfather 3, we had a beginning, which as we know is not right. So anyway, and then something, sometimes accidents are incredible. And I was telling, Fred Fuchs, don't worry, we're going to find the beginning. We're going to do it. As an editor, I've never been not finding a solution. That's my job, and I usually find a solution, even if it's not the greatest solution, but I'll have a solution. So anyway, Francis comes by, and he has one of those gadgets. I don't even know what it is. And he had an image in his gadget. And I came in after the movie had already one cut, right? So the way we recut the film, we didn't start going to all the dailies from the beginning. We would go to a scene, and then we would look at the dailies of that scene, right? So sometimes footage I had never seen because they were not part of a scene that I was working on. So suddenly I see this image, and it's Mina in a brown dress typing, And I'm like, what? Francis, what is that? I never seen, and I say, okay, we got it. I can start this story finally. He's writing to her, she's writing to him. We got it. You know what I mean? That storytelling could start, and it changed everything. Yeah. Suddenly, everything fell into place.
Dracula and the woman he loved. I have crossed oceans of time to find you.
You mentioned this notion of feminism that you added to this film. There's also an erotic element.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So how was shaping that? Because it's like we are not used to see those kind of movies.
Well, to me, once I knew that Jonathan was the boring husband, once you have a take on the story, you don't have to consciously. It becomes part of your creation of your emotion. So when you're cutting instinctively, you know what you're doing. So for me, Dracula was like, passionate sex, passionate love. She's reading the Kama Sutra, she's looking at all the positions. And that guy is troubling her because she knows that guy gets it. That guy could be a great lover compared to this, boring Englishman.
Yeah.
Right? So the moment he comes in and is in London and everything with her, the guiding principle is the fact that she's trying to, resist the attraction she has for him. She's very powerful. And the fact that he's seducing her, he's just seducing her. Of course, the scene with the wolf, in the cinematograph, when they're. So, but it's just, it influenced the rhythm, it influenced, the chase at the end, when she's trying to get to him and we're, fighting the sun. I love that sequence. That's my favorite sequence in the film.
Vampires do exist. This one we fight, this one we face.
I can tell a story about Gary because that's a story that directly involved me, and also I met him eventually. So Francis went down to LA to do the ADR, right? So to do ADR with Gary, and he comes back and he says, Gary's really unhappy with the scene, when he tells Mina that he is Dracula, that scene. And, he's really upset. So, I said, well, Frances, I cut this scene very, very specifically. And I started to tell Frances exactly why I had done it the way I did it, because you don't want to hear all the detail of that. But Frances listened and listened, and he said, okay, you know what? We're keeping it this way. So we didn't change it.
Yeah.
But months later, we are doing a party at my house because Eiko Ishioka got the Academy Award, right? Eiko for costume. And so we're going to do a dinner for her. And she asked for specific, and she's a big star, right? Eiko Ishioka, she's huge. And so she has a lot of powerful friends, she's not intimidated by the star. So she says, I want Jack Nicholson, I want Gary Oldman, I want blah, 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 right? So we have a dinner with all these people. Well, now we're at cocktail. So it's the beginning of the party. And, I've hired all my actors' friends dressed in black, going around with the vodka because we're serving. And, and they're like making faces at me, like they can't believe it, They're going around, and there is Jack, and there is Gary, and there is other people. It's just an amazing scene. So I have Jack Nicholson here, and Gary here. I sit on a poof, and I'm like sitting there, and I know, and I'm a bit of a bad person, okay, because I know it's going to come up, right? I know it. I just know it, and I'm like, this is great. I can't wait. Sure enough, it starts like, why? And it starts with, why did you cut that scene? And he starts like really going out of his mind in front of everybody. And I said, well, no, Gary. And they go, oh, no, I shouldn't talk to you. I should talk to Frances. I said, no, Gary, really. I mean, I'm loving it. But Gary, no, please, go ahead. Tell me, like I don't know, right? And so he says, what did you cut? When I tell him Dracula, blah, 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 blah. And then there is Jack, Jack is listening to all this, right? And he goes, Gary, sometimes they fuck us up. But sometimes they save our asses.
And it was a case that she saved him.
I love Jack, and I've worked with him. It's just like, I love this guy. He's so smart, so funny. And that was it.
Did Gary accept what Jack told him? Or like, how did he react after?
Of course he did. Are you kidding?
He's like,
it's like a king of Hollywood. Shut him up.
Can take on many forms. He is both young and old.
There was a lot of messages that come to your question. A lot of messages from the studio with a lot of notes. And they were just, studio notes, not at all at full in really creatively work a movie. They are very intelligent people, but they are not filmmakers in spite of what they think. So anyway, I started to recut the entire movie. And by July, Frances was like really could not take receiving the notes anymore. It was just so difficult because the notes were like, didn't have anything to do with what I was doing with the movie. It was like, notes from outer space or something. So we had a long discussion, and, I said, Frances, what's your name? Aren't you Francis Ford Coppola? And I said, just close the door. And so from July to October, when we previewed the film in Denver, the studio never saw the film. Okay?
Yeah.
So they were terrified. When they came to Denver for the preview, we had two previews actually, because there was such interest in the subject, in the film, that we had two previews. They descended from their airplanes, they were as white as sheets. They were terrified. And then So when they went in, it was barely hello, or, it was just, oh my God, it's the end of the world. We don't know what we got here. And then when it came out, it was, oh, Frances, genius.
Yeah.
It was a really big success. The previews were very, very successful. So that's how we dealt with the studio.
The power of his evil desire has no end.
It's Frances' genius because he has so many ideas, beautiful ideas throughout the picture. The music is incredible. And I think I do take a little credit for the fact that I created this very, dynamic relationship between Mina and Dracula because of what I was thinking. And the good part is that, for instance, last winter, I think, they were re-releasing The Godfather. He was interviewed by the New York Times. And the New York Times said, oh, okay, yeah, because he retouched every movie that he has ever made. He has retouched One from the Heart, which I cut. He has retouched The Outsiders, which I also cut. And so he was talking about that. And then the journalist said, well, what about Dracula? He said, no, Dracula is a perfect movie. I'm never touching it.